guys definitely don't want to miss this one. Make sure you follow me for more historical information. I love bringing facts. I don't like bringing BS. I love waking people up to the truth of how history has been distorted and how you could be someone else other than who you think you are, i.e. African American. However, this particular topic goes back to my last post that I made about HR 4637, right there, and how the United States government told the Muskogee Creek that if they did not fulfill their treaty obligations and put the Creek freedmen back fully enrolled, that they was going to relinquish their rights and take away their funding. Now, I'm going to read this. However, it goes a lot deeper, and I want you guys to bear with me and stay with me with this, and I want you to definitely share this with other people who may be misinformed or who don't know this history. But here we go. The bill is real simple: to sever United States government relations with the Creek Nation of Oklahoma until such time as the Creek Nation of Oklahoma restores full tribal citizenship to the Creek freedmen disenfranchised in the October 6, 1979 Creek Nation vote and fulfills all its treaty obligations with the government of the United States and for other purposes. So first and foremost, this goes so much deeper because that disenfranchisement that happened in 1979 coincidentally was at the same point in time something else happened when it came to the Muskogee Creek people, and that is they changed their name. See, throughout history, the Europeans had been calling our people Creek people because they sat next to the creeks within Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and things like that. So they dubbed us Creek people. However, they claim we called ourselves Muskogee, which is not true because Muskogee is a language. It's what we speak, Muskukali. There was never a people. Hence, the United States government talks about the tribes that made up the Creeks. The tribes that made up who they identified as the Creeks. And I want you to stay with me and I want you to listen to every word I say. Here, section 1, findings. This is the very first part of this bill that they were proposing, and it says Congress, listen to that word, Congress finds the following. 1, historically, the Muskogee Creek Nation were comprised of a confederacy of separate towns, tribes, and peoples. Did you catch that? Okay? The Creek Nation was comprised of towns and tribes of people. All right? Tribes make up the Creek Nation. Not that the Creek Nation is a tribe. It was multiple tribes that was comprised that the Europeans identified as Creeks. Okay? And I've always said this, and please bear with me, my tribal leaders who will see this page and get mad at me because I'm telling the truth. This is not me making this up. This is what history has shown. So bear with me. This is for educational purposes only, and I'm just educating the people. However, one of those tribes, and the only tribe they mentioned by Congress, is who? And I'll read it again. And I'll start right here. We're comprised of confederacy of separate towns, tribes, and people. Each town was a complete governmental unit in and of itself. Amongst those people were Yamasi or Jamasi, who were reported to have migrated from Africa prior to. For those who could not read it, here we go. And I'll read the rest of it. Reported to have immigrated from Africa prior to the European discovery of America. Now, let me ask you this, guys. How would someone immigrate prior to the European discovery? Because firstly, the Europeans would have to be saying that they know this to be a fact. They would have had watched our people come from Africa. They would have to watch us immigrate ourselves over from Africa to there. That's why the word they used was reported, because when they saw our skin, they couldn't make any sense of it other than they look like the people in Africa. They must be from Africa, because how would you immigrate yourself across the water? What do we use? Cruise ships? Did we fly over? Now think about the distance from America to Africa and tell me how that was to be. Not just a few hundred people. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of us. That's documented. Upper and lower Yamasi towns. However, I digress. Let's go. Now, if we add on and use common sense, one of the number one thing these light-skinned brothers and pretending $5 Indians like to say is that There was no black Indians over here. They are the original people. Here you have Congress openly starting their opening argument with there was black Indians here, and they called them Yamasi. And those Yamasi people, us, literally, remember, because we don't exist. We don't exist. And us black people are pretending. Remember all those trolls who you no longer hear from talking about there was no black Indians, and these guys are pretending and they're taking tribal identity of a people, yet Congress says something different. However, again, let me get out my feelings and just say this simply. This is Congress. They use the best historians. They use the best genealogists. They use the best when it comes to historical narratives and when they want to propose an argument, which is why the Muskogee Creek Freedmen or the Muskogee Creek took the actions that they took, which was trying to re-enfranchise the Creek Freedmen, because this door that Congress opened for them was just that. It was a Pandora's box they did not want to open. Okay? Now, this is a very important part of that bill because it talks about the Creeks and then the loyal Creeks. And then we're going to go into census documents once I'm finished at this point that I'm making. But it says Creeks known as the, quote, loyal Creeks, who generally resisted cultural assimilation, provided supplies, men, and support for the Union. A contingent of loyal Creeks, which included a substantial, quote, black Creek component. Let's not overlook the word a substantial black. They didn't say Negro. They didn't say African. They said black Creek component, saying these people looked like black people, and they had a substantial amount of them that was a part of the loyal Creeks, right? And it says they left their homes in Oklahoma and moved to Kansas to flee Southern Creek soldiers and their Confederate allies. Now, what do they mean to flee the Creek Confederate allies, right? Who were these Creek Confederate allies? I'll tell you. They were actually whites who had purportedly had Creek bloods, and they reported themselves on the census as such, that I look like a white man. However, I'm a Creek Indian. These are your $5 Indians. These are the people who wanted to put the original people into slavery. They were still fighting to put them in slavery. Hence, they said Creeks had Negroes in slavery. These were supposed to be the freedmen. See, the freedmen now, right? The Creek freedmen are supposed to be descendants of these white Creeks who were putting the black Creeks into slavery. You don't believe me? Watch this. Now, you can't see the whole thing, but I would please implore you, please, to go yourself and view the 5 civilized tribes census and break it down. Break it down systematically. Break the lies down, break the time frames down. Look at how things are not consistent and they don't make sense. But what I will say, if you look right here, let me see if I can do it right way, right there, and you get to the census, you will see whites, 3,200 and whatever, Creek Indians enrolled as such, right? Then you say Negroes enrolled as such. So what you have here, and it gets much deeper than that, because there was a large amount of white people, quote, white Creeks, enrolled as such, that identified as such, that was a part of the Creek Nation. And then they were identifying themselves as such, as white Creeks, and then they was breeding back in with black Creeks. Okay, this is trust me, it goes way beyond you guys can imagine, which is why it's so phenomenal to me to see how the Creek Freedmen basically are having to go about to be introduced back into a nation that was once theirs, because the Creeks were ran by Negroes. That is historically documented, and I'll bring the proof. I swear, for one of you who even test me and try me, I will show you how the whole Creek Nation was predominantly Negroes and identified as Negroes and ran the entire Creek Nation. Do not make me bring more receipts, because listen, I'm on a roll and I've been waiting on this one. Y'all watch and follow me for more information. Trust me, it gets deeper.